G'day folks, welcome to my beginner's guide for the GoPro Hero 8 Black. This beginner's guide is designed for people who have never used a GoPro before. Maybe you just got one over the holiday season, or perhaps you're thinking about buying one. This is going to be a very detailed video on how to get up and running with your Hero 8 Black. We're going to talk about things like how to charge your GoPro, what kind of memory to use, powering it on, setting it up for the very first time, and a few little tips and tricks along the way. If you've used a GoPro in the past, or you're an advanced user, you might want to go ahead and skip this video as there'll be nothing new for you in it. So let's just jump right in and get started. So the Hero 8 Black is GoPro's latest GoPro, got released in September of this year. Every year when they release a new GoPro, I like to make a beginner's guide for it. GoPros are becoming more and more popular every year. Of course, it's great for sports and different action scenarios like that, but as GoPros advance every year, they become more of a great camera for everyday use. Personally, I like using the Hero 8 Black because it's a nice durable camera, it's waterproof, and it's great for taking on holidays and when out adventuring. It's waterproof right out of the box, so it's great for days at the beach or around the pool. It has super stable footage, so if you're a vlogger or thinking about getting into vlogging, the Hero 8 Black is a great choice. So let's just get started and we'll get right into our guide. This video could be a little bit long, so feel free to pause it as necessary. You may decide to watch it over a period of time. It's a good idea to maybe bookmark this video, and that way you can always come back and reference it later. So to get started here, we're going to talk about taking it out of the package first. I've seen people in the past, they'll just rip the cardboard off, and you kind of want to avoid that if possible. The reason being that keeping the box in good shape does help with resale value. Maybe down the road you want to upgrade to a newer model, having the box will really help you sell it. So the proper way to open the Hero 8 Black, there's a security tab at the bottom. You're going to want to go ahead and rip that off. I already have mine off because I've had my GoPro out. Once you got your security tabs off, these flaps just open right up, and you'll notice that the GoPro just slides out all in one piece. So we have the camera here and it's mounted to the box. Inside the box we do have a few accessories. Let's go ahead and dismount the camera off the box first. At the back here you're going to see a rubber flap. What we're going to want to do is press that up, and there's two fingers there, and we're going to squeeze them in together. And as we're squeezing, we're just going to slide forward, and the camera will come right off. Let's go ahead and we'll set that aside for a minute. This mount up here that the GoPro was attached to was mainly for shipping purposes and display purposes. It is a good idea to save that again for resale value, but a lot of people like to make their own do-it-yourself mounts with that. So we'll open up the box here and we'll check out everything that's inside. First off, we have some literature here. We have kind of a quick start guide. We have some safety instructions, we have some stickers, and some warranty information. We'll open up that side flap and you can see that we have a few accessories inside the box there. Let's go ahead and we'll take them out. Once you've got them out, that's all in the box. There's nothing else on the other side. So in there what we have is a battery. GoPro released a new battery this year for the Hero 8 Black. You can tell it's the new series of batteries because it has a blue end. Older GoPro batteries had a black end. Inside the package we also have a charging and data cable, and we have a sticky mount. Now this is a curved surface sticky mount, so it's good for sticking to things like helmets and anything that has a curved surface. We're going to talk about mounts a little bit more here coming up. So let's take our GoPro here, and right now it's on what's called a buckle mount. So we're going to remove the camera from the buckle mount. What's holding it to the buckle mount is a thumb screw, so we're just going to take that off, set that aside, and then we're going to pull the camera off the buckle mount. There's an extra plastic piece on the buckle mount right now. You can go ahead and take that off and throw it away. It's only put on there for shipping purposes to keep the camera from tipping over in the box. So we just remove it like that, and then again, like I said, you can go ahead and throw that piece out. So let's take a look at the Hero 8 Black right now, and we'll get familiarized with all the buttons. On the top here we have a shutter button. That's how we record videos and take photos. On the side here we have a mode and power button. On the front here we have a small LED screen. Displays a little bit of information for us. On the bottom here we have our finger mounts, and it's kind of a new setup this year. In the past there was a frame that the GoPro had to sit in that had the finger mounts on it. This year GoPro has built the finger mounts right into the camera, and when you're not using them, they can fold in just like that. It's a really nice handy setup. You don't have to mess around with putting a GoPro in a frame every time you want to mount it. These finger mounts are built pretty strong. If you happen to break one, they are replaceable. You can see there that there's 4 screws, 2 on each side. You can just take off the old finger mount and purchase a new one on the GoPro website. On the back here we have a display screen. There is a sticker on it that has to be removed. The first time you go to remove it, it can be a little bit tricky. I've already had mine off, that's why it came off so easily. On the side here is our battery compartment. It's also where our memory card is installed, and it's also where our charging port is. To access it, we pull this little lock down at the bottom, just like that until we see red, and then it just lifts up like that. This door can be removed, so if it does happen to come off, don't be alarmed. It is designed to be removed. If you need to put it back on, you just line up the clip there at the top with that bar at the top of the camera, and it just clips in like that. You'll notice here on the door there's a red mark. That's to signify that it's open. It's a good thing to always check to make sure when you're going in water that you don't see any red on that lock. To shut the door, we just press and then make sure it's locked in. Again, double check to always make sure that it's sealed properly. Like I stated at the beginning of this video, the GoPro Hero 8 Black is waterproof up to 33 feet without any additional housing. You can take it underwater just as is. GoPro does sell additional housing if you do need to go deeper. For example, if you're a scuba diver and you're going to be going down quite deep, you're going to want to purchase an additional waterproof case that allows you to go a lot deeper. Now, before we get too far on how to use the camera, let's talk about mounting the GoPro Hero 8 Black. There's two basic ways in which you're going to be mounting your camera, and they both use the finger mounts that are located at the bottom. For example, this is the GoPro Shorty. It's basically a little mini extension pole. It also turns into a tripod if you need to set your camera down. You'll notice there that it has finger mounts built into it. So when you're going to go to connect it to your GoPro, it's just going to slide in there just like that. We then take our thumb screw and tighten it in, just like that. So that's the first way of mounting. Some mounts have built-in finger mounts already. Here's an example of the second type of mount that you might be using. This is a floating hand grip that keeps your GoPro afloat in the water if you happen to drop it. You can see here how it has this receptacle at the top. That's where we would use this buckle mount that came with the GoPro when we first took it off. You attach your GoPro to the buckle mount in the exact same way. You just line up the finger mounts and attach a thumb screw. When you're ready to mount your buckle mount, you have to make sure that rubber flap at the back is pushed up. Then it will just slide right in until you hear it click, and then you push the rubber flap back down. That rubber flap basically prevents these fingers from being pushed in accidentally and the camera falling off. Now, the benefit to using a buckle mount like this is that you can go from one accessory to the other without having to undo your thumb screw every time. Some accessories use the buckle mounts, others use just finger mounts, but at the end of the day, they both work well. Now, before we continue here, we need to install the battery and we need to charge it up. I would recommend before you turn the GoPro on the first time, install the battery and charge it up fully. These batteries don't ship with a lot of power in them, and sometimes there's not even enough to get through the setup procedure. So let's talk about how we charge our GoPro. The first thing we need to do is install the battery. Like I've already shown you, we're just going to open up our battery door. We're going to insert the battery, and to line it up, you just make sure the logo on the battery is facing the front of the camera. It just slides in there just like that. While we have the door open, it's probably now a good time to install our memory card. Now, when it comes to memory for your GoPro, there's all different kinds you can choose from. My memory of choice is SanDisk. It's what I use in all my GoPros, cameras, and drones. At this point, you just have to decide what size you want to get. Here I've got a 256 gigabyte card. And here, if you can see that, I have a 128 gigabyte card. 128 gigabytes is usually what I put in all my cameras and drones. 128 gigabytes is a good amount of storage, and usually you can get a whole day of shooting out of it. Of course, it's going to depend on how much content you're capturing, but personally myself, if I'm going to be doing a lot of shooting, I'd rather have two 128 gigabyte cards than one large one. The reason being, if one card happens to go bad, you always got a second backup on you. Inserting the memory can be a little tricky because it's a tiny little slot that we have to slide it into. To insert the memory card, basically we want the side with the metal strips facing the front of the camera. We'll just insert it into the slot, and sometimes you got to use your fingernail to push it in until you hear a click, and then it's locked in there. Removal is the same way. You sometimes have to get your fingernail down in there, just press down on it, and it will pop back up. So now we have our battery installed and our memory card installed. So now we're going to charge up the GoPro. We're going to use the included cable, and that's what we're going to charge it with. Now, when it comes to charging, GoPro doesn't include any kind of charging brick in the package. I'm not sure why they don't, probably to keep costs down, but you can use any kind of charging brick that you have laying around. Most of us have smartphones or tablets, and we can use those charging bricks to charge up our GoPro. For example, here I have a charging brick for an iPhone, and you can use this with no problems charging up your GoPro. You can also charge your GoPro by plugging it into a USB port on a computer. So this is the cable that comes with the GoPro, and you can see we have a USB port at both ends. This side here we have a USB-A, and this side here we have USB-C. So to charge up our GoPro, we're just going to plug it in, and you can see here how that red light came on. That's signifying that it's now charging. There's also a red light at the back, also signifying that it's charging. Now, in a perfect world, we would know the GoPro is done charging because that red light would go out. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way. I don't know why, but for some reason, it will just stay illuminated. Your GoPro will take anywhere from 45 minutes approximately to an hour to charge, depending on how much power is left in the battery. Now, while we're talking about charging, this is an accessory you might want to pick up for your GoPro. This is a dual charger that GoPro sells, and when you purchase it, you actually get a spare battery with it. Having a spare battery, I find, is very important with GoPros. You can get about an hour's worth of recording non-stop out of your GoPro, which means you can't get a full day's usage out of it. Now, to charge up the batteries in the dual charger, we just take our USB-C cable and plug it into the side there. You can see that the light is orange. When it's fully charged, the light will turn green. The nice thing about using the dual charger over charging it via the camera is that you're not tying up your camera. When you're charging your batteries by plugging into the camera, you can't use it. This way, if you have a spare battery, you could still be out filming with your camera and charging up your batteries. So we're going to get ready to turn on our GoPro for the very first time and run through the setup procedure. Now there's a couple quick things I want to talk about first before we do that. First off, GoPro has a companion app. You don't need to use the companion app in order to use your GoPro. However, it does add a lot of nice benefits. First of all, it's a nice way to preview the media that you film on your GoPro. It's a quick and easy way to update the firmware on your GoPro. You can edit the content you shoot and share it to social media, and you can use it as a remote to control your GoPro remotely. And speaking of firmware, if you're not quite sure what that is, firmware is basically software that runs within the camera. Most electronic devices do have some form of firmware. It's very important to keep your firmware up to date. Not only does firmware updates fix problems, it usually adds a lot of new features. Well, your GoPro Hero 8 Black is going to have firmware that needs to be installed right away. It's very important that you install it because it does add a lot of new features and enhancements. When we power on our GoPro for the very first time, we're going to go through the setup and I'm going to show you how to connect it to the app. Before you turn on your GoPro for the first time, make sure you go to either the App Store or the Google Play Store and download the GoPro app. You can see I have my GoPro app running there down at the bottom. Just do a quick search in the appropriate app store and it will come up right away. So let's go ahead and we'll power on our GoPro for the very first time. So to power it on, we're going to press the power button on the side of the GoPro. We're just going to do a quick press. You're going to hear some beeps and it's going to power on. And right now it's going to go through a setup procedure. This is something that's only done once when you turn it on for the very first time. Once you've done this, you won't have to do it again. So you can see here it's going to ask us our language. I'm going to leave it on English. Click the check mark. It's going to ask you if you agree to their legal stuff, and it actually says legal stuff. So we'll hit agree. It's going to ask us if we want GPS on. I usually recommend leaving it on because it does add some extra features when using the GoPro app. Now at this point it's now asking us to pair it to our GoPro app on our smartphone. It's telling us there to install the GoPro app on our smartphone and to leave our camera on and follow the instructions on the app. So I'll set the GoPro down while we set up the app. So what we're going to do is I'm going to launch the GoPro app. Because I've used my app and my GoPro before, I have to add mine manually. So when you launch the app, if it doesn't automatically go into the pairing process, just follow along what I do here and add it manually. So I'm going to click this first button there. You can see there I already have a camera added, my GoPro Max. But I'm going to click this plus button here up at the top. And it's now searching for the camera. We get a message there saying we found your GoPro. And now I'm going to click on Connect Camera. It's going to ask us if we want to pair it via Bluetooth. We're going to hit pair. You can see there that it was successful. We heard a beep on the camera. In this next step, it's going to ask us what we want to name our camera. We can name it to whatever we wish. I'm just going to call mine Hero 8 Black and we'll hit Save New Name. And actually you can see there that there is a camera update available. So this is the firmware update I was telling you about. So make sure you go ahead and install it. All you have to do is hit Update Camera and it'll walk you through all the steps. I'm just going to let this finish updating. Sometimes it can take several minutes. You may hear your GoPro turn on and off a few times as well. You'll get a notification on your GoPro and on the screen when the update is complete. So you're going to notice there we did get a confirmation on the app that the update had been completed. We also got one on the GoPro. It then restarted on its own. So we're all up to date. We're now connected to the GoPro app, so we're ready to take a look at the camera. Now before we get into how to use the camera, I'm going to show you here how to power it off. We know how to turn it on just by pressing the power button, but to turn it off, we're going to do a long press on it. We're going to press the power button and hold it down. You're going to hear that beeping, and then the camera will shut off. If for some reason your camera ever freezes, which it does do from time to time, just open up your battery door and pull the battery out. Reinsert it, and you'll be good to go for the next time. So let's take a look at the GoPro and the menu system. It's kind of different this year than it has been in past years. Now there's 3 different modes on our GoPro. We have photo mode, we have video mode, and we have time-lapse mode. You'll always know what mode you're in by the top here. You can see here we have a picture of a video camera. That means we're in video mode. Beside the camera, you can see here we have 2 dots on either side, and those are the other 2 modes that we can switch to. Now there's 2 ways in which we can switch modes. We can swipe on the screen. You can see we swipe that way. We went into photo mode. You can see there at the top that the icon has changed to a little camera. So that means we're in photo mode. So we can swipe back into video mode and we can swipe over to time-lapse mode. The other way to switch modes is by using the power button on the side. You can see there that's a power button, but it's also a mode button. As I press it, you can see there that it's going to change modes as well. Now, I just want to mention when you turn your GoPro on for the first time, I kind of skip this. As you're touching buttons and doing different things, you're going to get little kind of information tips kind of pop up. It does that once every time you touch a button once, just to kind of give you information about it. So let's take a look at the menu here and what everything does. And like I said, right now we're in photo mode, and it's going to change as we switch different modes. But we'll start here in photo mode first. On the very right-hand side, you can see here that is our battery percentage. You can see there I'm now down to 35%. In the middle here, that's our different modes, which I've already shown you. On the left-hand side here, that's our memory card information. And what it does, it always displays on how much memory is left in the card and how much content we can create. For example, because I'm in photo mode, it's saying that I can take 999 plus photos before the memory card is full. If I was to switch over to video mode, that would change to how many hours left of recording we can do on that memory card before it's full. This button right here is basically how we want to output our photos. If we click on it, it gives us a few options. Right now you can see there that we're in standard mode. That means it's just going to take a standard photo. If we swipe down, it's going to switch to RAW. RAW is probably not something you're going to shoot in unless you like to do a lot of editing. People who like to open up their photos in something like Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom, that's when you're going to want to shoot in RAW. It just gives you more editing options. If we swipe up, we'll go back to standard. The next one up is HDR. When you take a photo in HDR, it's going to grab a couple different photos at different exposures, merge them all together into one photo. The benefits to using HDR is that you get better contrast. You also get more detail in low lights and highlights. It helps the picture expose properly for complex lighting conditions. If you are taking an HDR photo, you have to hold the camera very still. Better yet, sometimes it's best to mount it on a tripod. The next is Super Photo. It's basically like HDR. It just gets the best image quality that you can out of a photo. It's just a good idea to play around, try different settings, and see what you like best. This button down here is our digital zoom. As you can see when I click on it, it brings up a zoom slider, and we can zoom in. On the other side of the screen here, we have a timer. Say we're going to take a selfie, or we have this on a tripod and we want to be able to get in the photo. We can click on that button, and we can set a 3-second timer, or we can set a 10-second timer, or we can slide it back down to turn it off. Now this button down here, the bottom left-hand corner, those are our digital lenses. You can see here right now we are in a wide field of view. Basically the field of view is how much of the scene you can fit on the screen. GoPro offers a few different fields of view, and like I said, right now we're in wide. The problem with wide is you can see at the back of my desk there, depending on how you hold the camera, you get a lot of distortion. It's great because you can get a lot of information in your photo or your video, but you do get that distortion. So we can change that by clicking on that little W there. We can slide it down to linear, or we can slide it down to narrow. So yeah, as you can see there, as I change it down to narrow, we don't have that curvature on the desk anymore. The downside is we can't fit as much of the scene in the screen. So again, it's kind of all personal preference. It's going to depend on what you're filming or what you're photographing. You might want to try and play around with some of the different settings and see what you like best. The options for digital lenses may change depending on what mode you're in and what resolution you're filming at. This button down here basically is how we change certain settings, and it gives us some information about what we're shooting in. For example, it's telling us we're in photo mode and we have the wide lens on. If we click on it here, you can see it gives us a few different options. Now in this tutorial, I'm not going to go over every setting because we would be here for hours upon hours. I'm going to go over all the basic things that you need to know to get started. I'm going to be making a more advanced tutorial later on. So let's bring that menu back up here. So basically, these are our photo shooting options when we're in photo mode. We can take a photo, we can take a live burst, we can take a burst, and we can take a night photo. Now every one of these modes we can customize by clicking on that little pencil icon. You can see there we can change various attributes. We can even go down and change some ProTune settings. I'm not going to get into ProTune for this video. We're going to save that for a more advanced tutorial. At the bottom there you see we have a plus sign. What that allows you to do is create your own custom modes. For example, you can see here we have this preset photo mode that shoots in a wide field of view. Maybe you want to make your own photo mode that shoots in a narrow field of view. You can add that, and that way you can easily switch back and forth without having to go in and change your settings all the time. It's a really convenient way to switch back and forth between different shooting styles. So we've taken a look at photo mode, so let's switch over to video mode and take a look at some of its settings. We'll just swipe over just like that. So its menu is very similar. There's a few different buttons on here. The top icons are exactly the same. The GoPro has stabilization built in and it's turned on by default. If you want an extra layer, extra polish of stabilization, we can turn on this thing called Boost. You can see there when I click on it, it turns blue, and it's now saying that boost is on. That's going to make it even more stable, however, you are going to lose some field of view. Turning boost on makes your video very smooth and stable, even if there's a lot of movement. However, sometimes you do want a little bit of movement. For example, if you have this mounted to a helmet and you're going down a trail on a mountain bike, you might want a little bit of movement to kind of make the video a little bit more dynamic. Other times you might want it maybe a little bit smoother to make it a little more cinematic. So it just depends on your own shooting style and what you like. Down here again we have our zoom, but you just have to remember when in video mode you can only zoom in before you start recording. Once you've hit the record button, you can no longer zoom. On the left hand side here you can see we do have our digital lenses again. Now over here you can see we have a picture of a snail. If we click on that, that's how we enable slow motion video. There's different ways to shoot in slow motion, and we're going to cover that in more detail in another video. At the bottom here it shows us our shooting mode, and it gives us a little bit of information. For example, it shows us that we're shooting in 1080 at 60 frames per second, and we're in a wide field of view. If we click on that, so GoPro has introduced these pre-made modes depending on what you're doing. For the most part, whenever I'm filming, I always shoot in cinematic. You can see there that it shoots at 4K at 30 frames per second, and it puts the digital lenses into the linear mode. And just like when we were in photo mode, we can click that plus sign there and create our own custom modes. Let's swipe over to time-lapse and we'll take a quick look at it. We don't have as many buttons on the screen here. We have our digital zoom and we have our digital lenses. Here's our information about our time-lapse, and we can click on it, and it gives us all our time-lapse options. And again, we're going to save time-lapses for another video. So those are all the basic shooting modes. So let's take a look at how we capture content. Right now I'm in video mode, and you can tell by that little camera icon at the top there, little video camera. So to start recording video, all we do is press down on the shutter button, and you can see there that it's now recording. When you're done, you just press the shutter button, and it's going to stop recording. If we switch over to photo mode, again, we take a photo by pressing the shutter button. If we enable a timer, you can see there I have it set to 3 seconds. When I press the shutter button, it's going to give us a countdown and then take the photo. It also gives us a countdown on the front screen. Now I'm going to go ahead and power the camera off here for a minute. Now GoPros have a feature called quick capture. Say you're out hiking and something interesting starts to happen. Instead of powering on the camera, setting your mode, by that time the moment could have passed, what you can do is just press the shutter button when the camera's powered off. You can see here, the camera's going to power on and start recording right away. When you're done filming, you just press the shutter button again, and the camera's going to stop recording and power itself back off. So that definitely is a handy feature in some situations. Now the problem using quick captures, you can't go in and fine-tune things, but when you need to record something very quickly, it works quite well. Now there's some advanced settings we can change in our GoPro, and to get at those advanced settings, we're going to swipe down from the top. You can see here we have some settings we can change. The first here is voice command, and we're going to get to that here in a minute. And you can see it's turned off because it's gray. The next here is a music note, and that's basically the beeps that the camera makes when you do different things. You can turn that on and off just by pressing that button. You can see here we have a picture of a rabbit. That's basically quick capture. You can toggle that button to turn quick capture on and off. The next is a picture of a lock, and we can click on that to lock the screen. You can see there when it's locked, we can't change any settings. Now, two other buttons we have here. The first is grid. We'll close that. And you can see now that we have these grid lines on the screen. That can come in really handy when you're trying to line up certain shots. It's a great way to make sure your horizon is level. And the last button over here is our orientation lock. The GoPro Hero 8 Black allows you to record in portrait mode. Right now we're in landscape mode, but you can see here when I turn it on its side, the menu changes and it will start recording in a portrait mode. Sometimes you don't want that, so we can hit that button and that will lock the orientation. From there we can go a little bit deeper into preferences. There's a whole bunch of different things we can change, and I'm not going to get into it in this video, but it's a good idea to go through them and see what's all there. Let's talk about voice commands. We can actually control our GoPro with our voice. By default, it's disabled. We have to enable it, and we do so by swiping down. You can see there we can click on that head, and basically that's going to turn it on. We can tell the GoPro to do various things like, GoPro, take a photo. Now the nice thing is you don't have to be in a specific mode. For example, we're in photo mode right now, but I can tell it to, GoPro, start recording. You can see there it's going to switch modes and start recording a video. And then I can tell it to, GoPro, stop recording. And you can see there, it left us in video mode, but I can tell it to, GoPro, take a photo. You can see there it automatically switched back to photo mode and took a photo. You can also power the GoPro off with your voice. GoPro, turn off. You can see there it just powered off on its own. You can actually tell your GoPro to turn on as well. Now again, that's disabled by default. We have to turn that on. So let's power the camera on here first. We're going to go down to our preferences. We're going to go to voice control. And there's an option there that says wake on voice. We can turn that on. Let's go ahead and we'll power it off. So you can see there it's right off, but we can tell it to GoPro turn on. You can see there it's now come on its own. So that can be handy in some situations. So now you've captured a whole bunch of content and you want to preview it. You can get at the content that you've created just by swiping up from the bottom. Right away it's going to show you your last created item. Right here it's just a picture of the desk that we shot during this demonstration. But we can go over here and click on that grid icon, and it's going to show us all the content that we have stored on the memory card. We can open up a file and play it. There's a few other things we can do from within here. We can delete it, we can set a tag, and we can scrub through by clicking on that button. When you're done and you want to go back to the main menu, just swipe down from the top. Now, just before we go here, I'm going to go over a few accessories that I think every new GoPro user should have. First of all, this is the floating hand grip, which I've already shown you here in this video. For me, it's a must-have. I use it all the time in the summertime. It's great for water activities. If you happen to drop your GoPro, it's not going to sink. It'll float in the water and you'll be able to see it because of this colored end. It also just has a nice foam grip on it, so it doesn't get slippery when in the water. And like I've already shown you, this is the GoPro Shorty. It's just a great small little handle that does have a built-in tripod, a little bit of an extension. And when you have your GoPro mounted on it, it's still small enough that you can fit it in a pocket. Now this here is called the Fusion Grip, or the Max Grip as they call it now. This is basically just like the Shorty, but just in a bigger version. It gives you a much longer extension and a much bigger tripod. It's pretty compact and fits nicely in most camera bags. The dual charger is a must-have, which I've already talked about in this video. This here is some protective housing for your GoPro. Most of the time you don't need this, but if you're going to be filming something where your GoPro could be put at risk, putting it in a casing like this will protect the lenses and the screen. If the camera takes a really hard knock, you may end up damaging the casing, but it's a lot cheaper to replace the casing than to replace the whole camera. The next is a power bank. This is just a nice way to charge your GoPro when not at home. You can plug your GoPro directly into one of the USB slots and charge it like you do at home. The other nice thing is that you can plug your dual charger directly into the power bank, put this whole thing right in a backpack and charge while you're on the go. This here is the GoPro silicone sleeve and lanyard. It just slides over your GoPro just like that. It's a really nice accessory if you're using your GoPro more like a point and shoot camera for the day. It's got an adjustable cord on here so you can attach it to your wrist or wear it around your neck. Just offers a little bit of protection for your GoPro, and like I said, adds that nice handy lanyard. You can get these silicone sleeves in many different colors to suit any taste. And it's a good idea also to pick up some kind of camera case. This here is called the Casey, and it's right from GoPro. It's a little bit pricey. There are definitely cheaper ones on the market, so just do some looking around. What I like about the Casey is that you can modify the interior to suit your needs. It has an elastic strap at the top, so you can put accessories and different things down below there. It also has this little pouch for keeping all your smaller parts and bits. Well folks, that's basically it for my beginner's guide. If you haven't done so already, I really invite you to subscribe. I create a lot of GoPro videos, different tutorials, some basic, some more advanced. I review a lot of GoPro gear and different accessories. If you're interested in learning more about your GoPro, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I do have some other beginner style videos planned for the Hero 8 Black, how to transfer and edit your media, and how to share it directly to social media. Well folks, that's basically it. Hopefully you enjoyed this and hopefully you found some value in it. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos, and we'll see you in the next one.